What's going on, everybody? This is going to be fun. Welcome to Ignite. This is going to be a little bit of a different flavor. We usually bring you vanilla or chocolate. Today's going to be vanilla fudge swirl. It's going to be a delicious, delicious podcast. We're going to talk about not just the marketing side, but we're more going to focus on the investment side. I've got Steve Grassa and Craig Sager here from Provident, and they're going to talk to us about what it means to be a really successful practice in today's day and age, and what it means to successfully go to market and sell that practice. Now, if you're a marketing director and you're listening to this and you're saying, hey man, usually I'm getting marketing tips from this fool. Why is he bringing on this investment banker, guys? There's a bigger reason for all of us doing marketing. We always have to remember, why are we marketing the provider groups that we're marketing, right? So eventually help them get acquired, to grow, to seek additional funding, to grow, to bring in the tuck-ins, to do all of this stuff. And these guys are going to help us understand from the business, the finance side, what it means to run a successful practice. And then when you start incorporating that into your marketing plans, that CMO, you're going to get that CMO job a lot faster. You're going to get buy-in from the leadership team for all new initiatives. This is the language we need to be speaking as marketing directors. We have to understand the business implications of what we're doing and what it means. We've also got Lauren Leone, our Chief Growth Officer. Y'all know her. She's on every damn one of these, and you know she's a smarter one of us too, so she'll be asking quite a bit of questions. Craig, Steve, welcome to Ignite. How are we doing?
Doing well, thanks, Alex. It's good to meet you. Meet you all. I'm a vice president at the firm. I've been in. I work in the Boston office. This is where we're headquartered. Working from home today, but been in banking for about 10 years. Have spent the last 6 or so with Provident, and I focus most of my efforts within the behavioral health space. So I'll spend probably 60-70% of my time within the space, working with founders, owners, operators as they look to explore what their transaction options may be. So excited to get started on this.
Yeah, thanks. And Craig, please tell me you and Steve are not Patriots fans. Or are you still? You need to be still if you were through the whole last 17 years. What's the deal?
Yeah, we are. We're both kind of call it suburb Boston, born and raised. So we are Patriots fans. Not so good these days, right. But we're loyal, so we're going to stick with it.
You got to stick with it because you've been rubbing in all our faces. 28-3, Matt Ryan just retired. Look at this. This is all I got. This is the best shirt because I can't get a good Falcon shirt, so this is the one I have. Okay, we love healthcare marketing. That's what unites us. That's what unites us. Okay, we've moved on. Lauren, how you doing? You okay?
I'm great.
Okay.
Happy to be on this side, not hosting, just joining.
Yeah, you don't have to do the thinking. You just get to answer and spit some game at us. Craig, so why are we talking, my man? What does Provident do? Why should people be looking at Provident Healthcare Partners when they're looking for an investment? And then we'll talk about what you guys are seeing, what makes a great behavioral group from a substandard behavioral group. And that is widening now, that you can't just go get tons of profit and then sell the bigger thing. So tell us about Provident and tell us about the behavioral market and what makes a great practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having us on, Alex and Lauren. And so Provident Healthcare Partners is a sell-side M&A advisory firm, i.e. investment bank. We also do debt raises and capital raises, but our bread and butter is M&A advisory services. It's actually our 25th anniversary this year, so we're pumped about that. So 1998 was where the building blocks were put in place. And, since day one, we have only played in the healthcare services arena. We have not ventured out into retail or industrials or other spaces. We really like to stay in our lane and be experts there. So essentially what we do, we predominantly do recaps and buyouts for healthcare service organizations. And what that means really is for organizations that are looking for not just capital, but a strategic partner to maybe take them to the next chapter or to the next goals they want to hit. We really, what we like to say, become that river guy. So we help them navigate those waters. Who are the potential partners? It's not all about, it's not all about price tag. It's really about the underlying terms, fit. What is the playbook for the next 5 to 7 years? So again, we really are the quote unquote middleman in that process, and work with our organizations to hopefully find them the right partner.
Yeah, I like that. The river guide, Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. We got them, guys. We got them here on Ignite. You didn't know I could bring them back to life. We got magical powers, healing powers here. Lauren, we were just at the McGuire Woods conference last week. That'll date us here on when this is going to launch, the McDermott thing this week. One thing we heard last week was everybody needs to be integrated and have a unique value proposition. It's no longer good enough to just throw tons of profit into the mix, right? And then we'll have Craig and Steve talk to that a little bit. As a marketer, Lauren, what's one thing we learned last week that multi-site PE-backed provider groups should be doing for the marketing front to make it more attractive as a bigger entity?
It's all about integrations in a way that you can bring, whether it be through technology, through the team, through the capability, through the cross selling of services, that you're one entity and not just 17 different companies that happen to share one parent, company name. And, I thought it was really interesting that integration is sometimes at the intersection with what is like convenient and easy, and how do we not burden these providers? How are groups taking that burden on and making it easier for them and integrating at the same time?
Yeah, I love that. And we heard from a variety of groups, like some of them will integrate things and some will keep independent at the local level. I'm like very confused at what it takes. So maybe Steve can help us out here. Steve, on the clinical side, when looking at ops from the clinical side, what do you think are the most important things for an org to keep in mind? Is it clinical quality, or do you look at anything behind the scenes, ops, process? What do you guys look at?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. I think what's the single most important thing for a business that operates in the behavioral health space is clinical quality. That is, that's the name of the game. And I think as a business scales and continues to grow, it's really important to be able to maintain that clinical quality as a company grows into the next chapter of its life cycle. And that can mean a number of different things. There's outcome tracking tools that you can leverage to measure quality. There's clinical staffing and clinical structure models as well. How are some of the providers utilized? What are the staffing ratios? All that stuff becomes important, and I think you need to have the protocols in place from a clinical and operational side of things to be able to win market share in this world and differentiate yourselves from, because there's stratification among providers, as in any other space, where there's really quality providers and then some others that are suboptimal. And I think it's that's the biggest differentiator in our mind.
Same thing with the agency work. It's all about outcomes. And big strata difference. I think Cardinal's best. Lauren. And when we are looking at different things, like Steve mentioned a lot on the outcome side and making sure that you have better quality there, do we do anything on the marketing side that outline outcomes for our clients? Is that like a big selling proposition, or everyone claims that we have the best outcomes? There's no way to quantify any of that.
I mean, you see like every site now has adopted things like, the stats like module on your website that's going to talk about these are the types of, or the number of people that we've treated, the number of families that we've helped. I think, when you're on like the B2B side of it, you're talking to an audience of potential groups that are looking to roll up or sell their practice into you. You're talking about, maybe how you've, worked with payers to, renegotiate contracts, to have a more value-based care approach, to, essentially like lower costs on all fronts and bring more value to the end patient. So I think you can quantify those things in a number of ways. It really just depends on your audience and what they want to hear or what they need to see. I think in behavioral too, the outcomes aren't necessarily just numbers. It's things like, some, innovative treatment options. We see a lot, with treatment-resistant depression, like what services are you bringing to the table? By integrating certain practice groups, you can then make this service available to a wider subset that maybe didn't have it before. Or how are you bringing services online and making it more convenient for both the provider and the patient to get together? So I think those are all the outcomes that we might be talking about.
I like that Steve also mentioned staff planning and stuff like that. As marketers, we're being asked to do a lot more recruitment and staff recruitment training support, all that kind of fun stuff, talent acquisition support. So demand planning, staff planning, all that kind of fun stuff. We don't just find patients anymore. We find not clinicians, but support staff for clinicians. So all big part of it. Okay, Craig, tell us about what the most successful groups are doing. If you want to hone in on behavioral, even better. What are some common themes that you see these guys doing that are better than the other groups that are coming and you say, we want to sell, and you say, guys, y'all need to be more like X. We're not quite there.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, people get into, we'll say, behavioral health for a couple reasons, right? Some people are clinicians by trade, or there was a family member that was diagnosed or going through, certain conditions, and so they want to give back and be a helping hand. Other people are in it for the money, right, and everything in between. But I'd say, in terms of the winners, and I'm not going to call them losers because everyone in this space is very noble work, but the all-stars, right, I think Steve hit it first. Clinical excellence is bar none. You have to have that. And everyone, a lot of times people are just growing to grow, but what is good growth, right? And you kind of have to have the building blocks infrastructure in place. And with that, it's really having your IT systems, your regulatory, your compliance teams, maybe someone that sits a part of revenue cycle management. You actually, when you think about operationally, you have key performance indicators in place and really track what's working, what's not working, what are we striving to be, right? And so if you're able to have, again, those foundational items in place and referral sources start to buy in, you're doing family education, and you're really tracking those outcomes, then the growth will kind of come in itself, right? You don't have to go chase it. You kind of have that already in place, and it kind of comes to you.
Yeah. Do you see the more lucrative or the more interesting behavioral groups, do they have a strong telehealth component, or are they mostly interesting because they just have enough therapists ready to sell? Like, is telehealth important when they go to sell?
It's an important offering, but the best groups don't lead with it, right? It's an ancillary offering for maybe people in rural communities, or for certain situations where it's late in the night and they can't get to the clinic or they can't get to the facility. But most people it's going to be an in-person treatment.
Yeah, it seems to be. I think I saw a stat today from Chris Larson, Behavioral Health Network. 70% still prefer in person, but 30%, even some of the older demographics, are doing a lot of telehealth. So it's give or take. I like in person first, and then we can do video. Same thing with other humans in our life. So also, I have a question that I'll kind of apply to marketers. Like, what is a behavioral health group more attractive if they've developed their own marketing machine, or does it matter? Like, is it okay if they're 100% driven by PCP referrals or word of mouth, or is it like you're going to get a higher multiple if you built a marketing machine through whatever Google advertising, Facebook, SEO, local activation? Does that factor in to their multiple or how well they can sell?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does, right? I think word of mouth is a great way to grow, right? It means you're doing something right. The community is behind you, referral sources are behind you. But if you have a differentiator in terms of, robust digital marketing or other kind of marketing angles, and you're able to scale at a faster clip than Joe Schmo down the street or competitors, like, that's absolutely something that people can get behind, and it's more scalable.
Okay. Good. So you heard it here. And marketing directors of behavioral health provider groups, that's one way you can get more budget. You can say, hey, listen, like, I know what we're trying to do because we're PE backed. We need this thing to roll up in the next couple of years. If we're able to show that we can build our own marketing machine, we're going to be able to sell this thing faster, going to get a higher multiple, we're going to be more attractive. Telehealth component, semi-important too. Build a marketing machine for these things. All right, thanks, Greg. Steve, we've talked on the operations side a little bit on digital, like financial economics. What have you guys seen in the companies you guys have worked with? Payer mix, revenue. Like, what are you guys seeing currently? And this is March of 2023. I feel like every month we're going to get a different answer. Important that we date ourselves there.
Yeah. No, I think two things. One, quality of revenue is important in the different sources that it's derived from. So if you think about referral sources, funding sources, what your payer mix is, you want to avoid any sort of concentration risk, because ultimately valuation is a function of the growth of the cash flows of the business, but also risk, and concentration risk is inherently risky. And so having a diverse set of referral sources, diverse payer mix, being in networking, having sort of cleaner revenue cycle, those are all things that kind of play into the quality of revenue that's important for groups that are looking at these businesses. And I mentioned growth too, and Craig also touched on it too. Growth, not just for growth's sake, but being thoughtful and focused around growth. I think density is really important as you can continue to scale the business. There are some groups that kind of fall for pins on the map syndrome, and I think it's more important to build density in core markets, and that really comes into play when you approach the payers and provide some ammunition and leverage as you come to the table for some of those negotiations.
Yeah, Steve. So what are you trying to do? Like show, like we don't just have one location in Atlanta. We have 10 providers there, and we're in all of the submarkets within Atlanta. What is the best thing to show there? It's good to have satellite offices, or no, like hotel, the therapy desk, and just get tons of therapists in one area. What's the best thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, even in a given market, in adjacent markets, just building out offices and a presence and winning market share in your core regions, and even satellite offices just outside of that, core catchment area. There are some groups that kind of bounce from state to state that may be, in disparate regions, but I think building density in your core geography and core region is what's most important, and what most groups are looking for.
Yeah. Craig, I'll punt this one over to you. When you guys are evaluating viability of a group, do y'all look at the talent acquisition system that they have, like from open job rec to placement, what kind of marketing support they have, how much they're spending to get each placement from Indeed or LinkedIn ads, or none of that factors in? Is anyone looking at that stuff?
No, for sure. I mean, on our initial request list, every time we look at a business and try to understand kind of what it looks like under the hood, we always ask about retention rate and what is your staffing approach, right? And so the best groups have a pretty robust kind of systems in place, whether that be an applicant tracking system or something that's tied to HR. One of my former companies, we had a head of talent acquisition, probably had 7 or 8 people underneath him. In behavioral health specifically, right? It's a high turnover industry, and that's okay, right? I mean, you want to retain people, but you have to understand that that's just kind of par for the course. So you have to have some tools and certainly people in place that can constantly find talent and keep them.
Yeah. Not easy. Lauren, as we help, and we have behaviorals are the biggest chunk of our business here. And you heard it from them, like sustained revenue growth. Like when you think about it from a marketing perspective, what are the things that we do that don't just make patient acquisition shoot off, but like what do these groups need to do to build sustained revenue growth? Is it just the foundational digital marketing stuff? What are we talking?
I mean, a lot of the foundational pieces, well, a lot of what everyone throws their money at is what's pay to play, right? So it's great while you're in it, but if you're not in it, you're not getting it, right? You're not getting the activity. And I think what a lot of people tend to do is want to get quick results. And so you throw a bunch of focus there, and really challenging clients, people that we partner with, people that I speak to that never become clients, but I get, a chance to speak with them, is to think about what really, what your brand value propositions are, because what makes you unique is not that you're convenient. It's not that you have 4.8, star reviews. Those are great. Those are almost like necessities to do business nowadays. And you have to think above and beyond that. And I was actually curious. I have a question for Steve and Craig, but that I think organizations have to have a mission bigger than just what they are. They all care about something, and oftentimes, like at least the younger generations, they're not always just buying your product or service. They believe in you and what you stand for, so they're willing to give you your business instead of the guy down the road. And I don't know if you all factor that in. It's kind of this like unquantifiable it factor, but is the vision and the purpose and kind of how they position themselves in the marketplace something that you all consider when you're looking at valuation? I guess I'll ask Steve that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more qualitative, but you can see it like the second you talk to some of these founders and owners and just how mission driven they are. And for the most part, it really, those are the groups that are successful, that have a true passion for what they do, and it shows in their business performance, their financial performance a lot of times, and shows really well with prospective partners. And at the end of the day, it's if you're approaching the market, looking exploring your transaction options, you're exploring partnership options, and there needs to be philosophical and cultural alignment between founders, owners, and the group that they ultimately partner with. And that's more important than economics of a deal or some of the more quantifiable components of a deal as well.
I would just add that too. That's all right. Is one of the first things we do, and certainly any potential partner or investor, is we always go on site. We meet the management team or the owner, the entrepreneur, and we always have them tour a clinic or a facility or where they do business, right? And it's really you can get both ends of the spectrum, right? Where just sort of the culture and the people and the way they react with the owner can be great and really positive. And other times you can kind of tell like they're very distant or there's not a good culture. And I think when you think about going to market and having a transaction, buyers can see that real quick, right? And so that's stuff they're always looking for that you can't quantify.
And that perfectly kind of sums up, in a much bigger version of what we think about on the marketing front, which is the same applies to the patients, right? You can sit there and put words on a website that say, we are this, we are that, showing them and not telling them, letting them, open it up and let them see that for themselves through video content, through, featuring your providers, through testimonials of the patients that have had life-changing experiences with your, whether it be through talk therapy or something like TMS or medication, whatever it is. But I think the same thing applies, right? You can see right through it and who's really doing it for a purpose and who's doing it, for the economics. So everything you've said kind of is we're a bit of a microcosm of what's going on in your all's world.
What is the number one concern, guys, when the provider's looking to sell? Is like, I'm going to lose control over this thing and just be a cog in the big machine. Like, how do y'all overcome that? Is it by bringing them into a partnership, earn-out? They have to stick around. Like, I've seen the clinical quality just drop off on some of these groups that are acquiring a lot, and then the providers leave because it becomes a machine. How do you set that up so that doesn't?
It's not a good answer, but it's definitely case by case. But I think at the end of the day, most of these owners, right? Like, this business is their baby. They put blood, sweat, and tears into for years, sometimes 30, 40 years. And they're obviously, it's time, not necessarily to sort of sunset or exit the business, but it's time to take it the next step. And whether it's professionalizing business or just having someone else run the day-to-day, whenever you're giving up majority, there's just a control ego thing there, right? And that's why you're generally get some proceeds with the deal. But I would say it's definitely finding the person that you can trust to sort of carry on what you've built, right? And that's really hard to figure out through even dinner meetings. And so we constantly say, don't talk to everyone under the sun, but you got to talk to enough different cohorts of partners or investors and understand really what is it going to be like to work with them, and then do sort of reference checks and understand how they've worked with other founders in the past.
And try to find the deals that didn't go through with them or that fell apart that they don't list on one of their portfolio sites that fell apart. Try to find those. Maybe a lot of these provider, something that scares me about some of these provider groups that look to sell is that they meet some PE firms and they sell without going through a process or hiring a banker. Steve, what are your thoughts on that? Is it worth? Obviously, it's worth hiring you guys, but tell them the big pitfalls. Like, what's the danger there if they know a PE firm with lots of healthcare services in their portfolio. I feel good about it. I'm going to do it. I don't need Steve and Craig.
Yeah, it's not often you get to sell a business that you've built over the last 20, 30 years, and so you really want to do it right, and you want to professionalize the process. And I think hiring a bank is just a signal to the market that this is a professionalized process, that it's a competitive process. Groups aren't going to be able to, fully take advantage of some of the unsophistication of some of our clients, and they're going to be competing with other prospective partners as well, and so they know they need to put their best foot forward. Right. And so, structuring a well-organized process. And being able to kind of control the narrative to the market, putting together marketing material, putting together the financial model, sort of increases the probability that a deal is likely to close, and in most cases maximizes valuation for the seller as well.
Yeah, and also you guys know the real players, and you also know the shitty PE firms that are going to just run them over and stuff like that. So the consult from you guys on who to talk to and who to stay away from, I imagine is invaluable. Even if the first bite is slightly less, sticking around, second bite much bigger.
Yeah, we know how all these funds have performed. We know case studies, good outcomes, bad outcomes, how the groups behave through a process, how they behave in diligence once they go exclusive. How often have their deals actually gone through where they have an LOI signed. So all that comes into play as you kind of vet your options.
How's this year going to be? What's our prognostication, Craig? What are we thinking? Is it the year of the tuck-in? Are we still seeing platforms for it, money drying up, interest rates going up? What do you?
Yeah,
what do you
listen, I think we're
okay?
going to be okay. I think we're Provident plays, right? We sit nicely in the lower middle market, so our average deal size is, call it, 50 to 150 million of enterprise value. We've gone above, we'll go below in certain spaces, but this space is not as affected as, say, the bulge brackets or the mega buyouts where it's $1 billion plus and kind of go and get debt raises or writing a check to fund the deal. It's much harder, right? So there's still areas that investors and the lenders have to be cautious about, but we're still very bullish and optimistic, and I think it'll still be more add-ons or tuck-ins over the next, call it, 12 months. But I mean, we went to JPM 2 months ago, and undoubtedly behavioral health, if you had to, if we read the numbers, is the most popular space in healthcare.
Yeah. We get a new ABA lead or therapy lead just about every day. So yeah, we're gonna be fine. Can you invite me to this JPM thing? Do I need to know this Jamie guy? Like, what the hell? I didn't. No invite. How do I go to this thing? Everybody said
pay a lot of money. You got to, kiss a lot of rings and just network like crazy. But no, it's
okay. Well, y'all let me see your rings. I'll be out in Boston and kiss them. And when something came from these rings, what do we have? We're both having kids in the next month. Is that right?
Yeah, not together, but.
It's okay. It's 2023. We're in investment banking and we had the kids together. You never know. That's exciting. Boys or girls? Steve, which one is it?
Boy
as well.
Boy. And what about you, Craig? Yeah, that's the way to go.
Don't let him say that, Lauren.
That's the way to go. Lauren's got both.
My oldest is a son too, so I think it's been a blast.
Alex, you have a boy or two boys?
Yeah, I have three, 14, 4, and 2. Yeah. Yeah, dude. I had him young. When I started Cardinal, I left the hospital, started cold calling the day after. And so when you guys were talking about some of these guys have put 20 years, I put 14, tired of shit, gone through raising babies and stuff. So it is the baby, and the exit must be significant. And we have heard the same thing you guys are saying, like you need to have your own unique value propositions. The marketing's got to be on point. You got to have your own marketing machine. You got to have talent acquisition on point. Very useful, very helpful. Craig, Steve, thank you for joining us on Ignite, guys. If you want to find them, Provident Healthcare Partner, you'll find them on LinkedIn. You can search for them. And please, 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 before you go to market, go ping them. These are the guys to know in the healthcare investment banking space. Steve, Craig, thank you for joining us on Ignite. I very much appreciate it.
Alex.
Thank you very much.